These images. A military-style presence patrolling our streets. But these aren't U.S. service members, they're local police. And it's gotten hard to tell the difference. This is a story about how conflicts with cops sometimes escalate out of control, and how our decades-long militarization of police departments has seemed to make it worse. But I'm not just here to point out problems. If you think change is needed, I'll provide you those tools too. By and large, most protesters have showed respect for the law, and most police officers have showed incredible composure and integrity during incredibly nerve-wracking moments. But it only takes one spark to set off an explosion in our community. We should all be rooting for fewer sparks. That means de-escalating a tense situation. Yet we keep putting tools of escalation, tools of war, in the hands of our local cops. Then we act surprised when protests, which began as peaceful, escalate and start to resemble a war that officers were dressing for. Here's a retired big city police commander to explain.
What should happen when there's a peaceful protest, the police should be out in their regular day-to-day uniforms, not the military ones, interacting with the protesters, asking them, how can we help you? So that you can exercise your constitutional right and voice your concerns. But almost immediately, the police are there in their military garb with their military equipment. And very soon, you start seeing the military vehicles. If you have it, you're going to use it and deploy it.
Neill Franklin's a retired SWAT team member and narcotics officer in Baltimore, as well as a national advocate for criminal justice reform. And he says, instead of peaceful events where cops and civilians are both safe, you're more likely to get escalation, where officers get hurt, or innocent people get hit with pepper spray and rubber bullets. Or, as Fox 11 in Los Angeles saw live on air, cops with rifles drawn rushing business owners who did nothing wrong. The agency told the station it was necessary to get a confusing situation under control. That could have been any of our families, scared out of their minds because cops' first instinct wasn't de-escalation. But this goes beyond protests. Ask yourself, if there was a domestic dispute next door, would you rather cops come calm everybody down, or show up, guns drawn, and adrenaline pumping all the way down to each of their trigger fingers? De-escalation is good for cops too. Studies have shown that militarization of local police forces has increased violence by police, as well as violence against police, and an overall reduction in community safety. So why is this even a thing? One reason is the federal 1033 program, which liquidates surplus military equipment to local law enforcement. It started back in the 90s with the war on drugs, but our research found last year alone, U.S. police agencies got $200 million worth of gear from the feds. That's up 40-fold from the average of just $5 million worth of gear a year through the first 2 decades of the program. And look, there are some reasons to like 1033. It puts useful equipment in the hands of local cops for little to no cost to taxpayers. And I've spoken to police chiefs who swear by the effectiveness of the program and how it helps them responsibly fight major crime. But let me ask you, did a small California seaside city need machine guns and night vision scopes? Did campus police in Central Florida need grenade launchers? And did America's local police departments need 1,100 mine-resistant MRAP vehicles last year? I personally didn't realize there were so many landmines under the streets of Los Angeles and Seattle. Oh, and because agencies often have to return the equipment if they aren't using it, they tend to use it. And if my point hasn't been clear enough based on the equipment cops are using, just take a look at the uniforms. This is an officer patrolling a sporting event in 1999. This is an officer patrolling a sporting event today. We look like a country at war.
At a time when we need to improve police-community relations, it creates a barrier. We have a very standoff, unfriendly appearance that no one wants to approach. Yes, there are times when you have to be prepared to deal with people who are violent, but the vast majority of the work that we do in policing is not that. Well over 90% of the work that we do in policing is about solving someone's problem every day.
A lot of cops do great work, and we want them to be protected. But when situations escalate, it's not just the bad guys who get hurt. It's also police officers. Or this 75-year-old peaceful protester in Buffalo pushed down by officers who have since been suspended. So what can you do to support demilitarization and de-escalation? I know it feels like voting doesn't always work, but it absolutely does. When President Trump won in 2016, he chose to expand the 1033 program just a couple of years after President Obama restricted the distribution of heavy-duty guns, vehicles, and riot gear to local police. And it's not just president that matters. If you don't like the policing policies in your community, you can help vote out your mayor, your sheriff, or your state lawmakers. Even easier, ask them for a meeting to discuss the issue. Or reach out to Neill Franklin's Law Enforcement Action Partnership. They'll help you set up that meeting and provide advice if you need it on how to get through to local officials. Because at the end of the day, we all want safer streets.